Thank you very much and welcome to day 3 of Learn and Redefined. And this is our first online conference and we're focusing on celebrating teaching and learning throughout. I'm Graham Trick, I'm the Learning Specialist here at Showbie. And for those of you who might not have been to any of the other sessions this week, Showbie is a hybrid learning platform. We're empowering over 3 million users globally, and we're aiming to provide richer, deeper, more personalized feedback to all learners. And it's something we've been proudly doing for almost 10 years. If you want to find out more about Showbie, please visit us at showbie.com. During the presentations, please use the Q&A feature to ask any questions and we will answer them at the end of the presentation. For now, I'd like to welcome Ashley, who's going to run this session where we explore the use of technology in psychology. So thank you very much in advance, Ashley, and over to you.
Okay, hi everyone. I hope everyone's doing very well wherever you are in the world right now. And my name's Ashley, and I'm just going to talk to you today about how I support my psychology students via the use of technology. The pandemic hit us all extremely hard in the education sector. So overnight, educators around the globe were expected to not only adapt to that life, but to become technological wizards so that our students still get those opportunities and the outcomes that they would have previously via the educational system. So that meant that we had to discover new ways of doing things, or new ways of doing things, in order to push the education field even further. So some of the technology that I use and that I'm going to be talking to you about today, first one is obviously Showbie. Okay, it literally changed my life, something that I will never go back from now as an educator, and something that my students would never allow me to go back from as well. I'm then going to be talking through some feedback and feed forward, how that's changed and how actually, whether they are in the physical classroom or whether they are distance learning, that actually technology and physical should be blended. It should never be kept separate. You know, technology is there to enhance the experience and to reduce those boundaries that students may have, whether that's a physical boundary or a psychological boundary. Via the incorporation of both of these, we can actually eliminate them, and a lot of our students are thriving, okay? The next thing I'm going to talk to you about is an app called Socrative, which, once again, I want to say saved my life, but they all did. It's basically about a quizzing technique that I'll go into in more depth, and then how I use technology for personalization. So every single student at the moment in my classroom is effectively doing something different, but I'm tracking it, I'm on top of them, and all of them are making marginal gains to make sure that in this mock exam coming up next week, that every single one of them will achieve above their target, hopefully, if this technique does work, which I'm sure it is. And then finally, I'm going to talk about 2 other applications called the 3D brain, which is what I use to guide students through a live brain dissection using the technology. And finally, how I use Minecraft for personalization for my students to make sure that the material comes more alive for them. So that's what we're going to go over today. And I'll start off straight away with how I use Showbie. So Showbie, as you've just been introduced to it, is the best educational app that I have ever used in my life. So effectively, what we have is a virtual classroom. I set up all of my classes, and as you'll see in a second, I've got them all labelled up fine, so we can see each class, whether it's my year 10s, 11s, 12s, 13s, they're all there labelled up. Now, once I've got that class, all of my students join it, and effectively, whether they're sat in front of me, whether they are at home because of the restrictions at the moment, it doesn't matter because we're all in that one space together, which allows for collaboration. Within that class, I then have topics. So I go along with the ones that are named on the specification, just to make it more simplistic for the students to access it. If they come across it on an exam paper, they know where they're going into Showbie. In there, I can put all of the lesson material, all of the resources, and I can even send individual students differentiated work. So, for example, if I've got some students who might be low ability within that classroom, I can make sure that I'm providing them with different material to everybody else, but not everybody else has to be aware of it. It's, you know, it's right there for them, and they can access it if they choose to. However, within these topic files, which is being, you know, such a blessing at the moment, is you can create a file called assessments. Now in here, we will have every single assessment that that student has done. Now the student can do them online, the student can do them on paper, and the Showbie app's got a really great technique where you can just scan it in, upload to one document straight away. Now, that's extremely useful for me as a teacher to look back on and go, right, let me look at the progress over time for this student from the first assessment right the way through. Let me see where their journey began and where it's actually eventually going to go, so that we can get that huge overview. What's extremely, you know, we've found really beneficial at the moment is that with the exams now being cancelled around the globe, that I now have my bank of evidence done. I don't have to spend the time to go back, finding pieces of paper, where's the evidence of the student's name, where's the evidence the student is a B. Don't have to do that. I've got it all there ready to go. If the example wants it, download it, send it, done. It's that simple. This is going to save me so much time in the future because I've got everything there and done. All the marking is done on Showbie. Gone are the days of me carrying 50, 60 copybooks home, putting them in the car, taking them out, worried in case I forget one at home the next day and that this student can't do their work because I forget the book. It's all gone. It's all online. It's so simplistic. As long as I've got my device in my hand and my pen that I can use, I'm good to go. And the students get their marking instantly, which is perfect. They finish the assessment, might go home that night, mark it at home, and they're getting it straight away, which is perfect. So therefore, it reduces my workload massively. And the moderation process is so much easier. I'm going to go through these a little bit more detail now. But this is what my classes look like. So you can see here, all my classes are laid out fine. There's all of the topic areas, all of the lessons, and just what their students will actually see, which is their lesson and the additional materials there. So moving a bit more deeper into Showbie, it's not just a tool that we can use in order to, you know, store resources and to get students to access it. In fact, as I said earlier, I incorporate this with my physical teaching on a daily basis. And I'm going to just go through a little example of how I use this and incorporate it with my Year 12 class at the moment. We have mock exams next week, and as you can imagine, all students, it's not they all have one area they need to work on. That's the exact same. Every student needs to work on something that's unique to them in order to get that marginal gain for improvement. So we came up with an idea of how we can incorporate that into Showbie. So every student within my classroom has an individual learning plan. So they actively write on it, they tell me what they know, what they don't know, and effectively they give themselves a score out of 12 for each part of the specification, which results in a total score of 72 for that topic. As you'll see, I've obviously got different students, maybe having stretching challenges depending on their ability levels. And because I've got access to all of the individual learning plans via Showbie, I can address the common misconceptions that are made on each topic and make sure students are aware of what those misconceptions are. Effectively then, once students have given themselves a score out of 72, they will then begin their personalised learning journey. So they'll start on the very top one. So if we can see at the top where it says in red, start your section with the lowest score out of 72. So on the exam paper where there's 3 topics, the student will start off on their lowest score for that section. They will then be directed to a page on Showbie, depending on what score they got. So within their lesson, they will be directed to a section like this. So for example, this part here is attachment. If attachment came out as their lowest score at 72, they will then have to go back on their individual learning plan and find which subtopic was their lowest score out of 12. Then, once they do that, they can just click on the number and it will take them to a very personalised task. Now, those students will then access this task, and not only is it the subject content that needs improving, but as you can see here, these are revision sheets that are provided by AQA, but each one of these tasks requires a different skill set. So I can then not only get them to improve their subject knowledge, but I can actually get them to improve their skill set that I know they need to, using the individual learning plan. Now, effectively, I've got 15 students now in my room who are all actively working and making rapid progress. Each one of them, but every single one of them is doing something different. And what's amazing is that without me having to analyze each of them and spending hours of my time outside of the classroom doing this analysis, I can just look on Showbie and go, okay, which area did the majority of my students go to? Because it's very clear that the majority here went to attachment. And then the next one was social. So I know that the next lesson I do, I 100% have to go back onto the attachment material. Maybe I want to do a quiz on it. Maybe I want to go, okay, well, why is that the biggest one that all of the students seem to be struggling with? No, hasn't taken me hours to do, hasn't taken away my time. In fact, Showbie have just done it for me. So again, it's about me addressing the needs of those students at the first possible instance. And that's what this technology can do. The next thing I want to show you all is about the marking and moderation, because we all get into teaching because we love it and we want to be with the students, we want to see them excel. However, marking can be a bit of a drone sometimes, especially if you've got the mock exams coming up where you've got 200 papers coming in, and that apprehension can be a bit much sometimes. However, not with Showbie, because it actually, you can provide instant, easy digital marking straight to your students. So what that looks like is this. I have one student who prefers to work on paper, as you'll see here. Now, he uses the scanning function on Showbie, uploads it, I get it instantly, mark it instantly, and he gets his feedback as soon as I'm finished. So gone are the days he's been waiting for his next lesson to get it. If he gets it before the next lesson, which they do, they can then look and go, right, what have I got to improve on before my next lesson? And they can actively go and do that, which brings me to the feedback and feed forward part. Once the students receive this back, they can then annotate it again. So for me in my school, we have a policy here at SRS that students should be given a feed forward task of, something that is active, that engages them to get them to that deeper level of thinking, that high performance learning. And that's what we do. We get them to go back. Any questions, any tasks I've set, they will go back and they will annotate it in green pen. And again, I'll get that notification straight through from Showbie to tell me this student has done it. Amazing. So that I can go back and make sure they've got it right. Now, with psychology, and especially if you're teaching in a global setting, we have a lot of new language, especially if English is your additional language. So one function is we can use voice notes. So rather than me writing my feedback feed forward, I can give it verbally. So if a student has spelt something wrong, then I can go back on and I can leave a voice note asking them to respell it for me. Rather than me writing spell this word properly or spell this word correctly, in fact, that's just me doing that job for them. I'm taking away a learning opportunity. But with voice notes, I can give them that learning opportunity back where they can then go, okay, let me listen again, let me spell it, and they'll spell it out, and then I get that back. Again, just leading to those marginal gains, especially when essays are being leveled within psychology. So that's just an example there of me leaving a voice note for a student. And as you can see, she's green penned it back to me after I've told her exactly what needs to be done on that question. The next thing that I love is student collaboration. Students are becoming less 100% reliant on me as a teacher and less reliant on the teachers, because they actually are starting to use each other as tools for learning, which is amazing. That's what we want them to do, we want them to collaborate. And on Showbie, there is discussion boards. So here's a discussion board that some of my students are using at the moment. Again, sorry, me reminding them of an essay, of course, but you can see there the dialogue of, hi class, anyone know what the duration of short-term memory is, please? And again, we can see that the students are answering, and then obviously correcting each other's language, which I think by now you can probably tell is something I'm a little bit picky on with exams. I've already told you about mock exams being on Showbie, which is fantastic. So it's just an example of what it looks like. Just looks like a normal exam as they would do it. However, what's been phenomenal is that within the psychology department here, we are very big on moderation. We're big on moderation as a school. We want to make sure our marking is as accurate as possible. But within psychology, what's great is that we can go straight onto the assessments. And what you can do is, if you see the little icon that looks like 3 pieces of paper layered on top, a different teacher within the psychology department can now go onto my class, go onto the assessment, and if they press these 3 pieces of paper, they can remove my marking temporarily. So they can remove it, and it allows them to now go back and moderate and mark it without any bias, or any unconscious bias, I should say. So my marking is not going to influence them. It just means now that when they finish marking the paper, they press this little icon again, this one right here, and my marking will pop up, and then we can make that true comparison and open up to a more deeper conversation of, well, you awarded 2, I awarded 1. Why is that? Why are we straying slightly off the mark scheme? And it allows for that educational dialogue to happen. And that's where you see progress within our teaching abilities as well. So it adds to that. And as I've said, it reduces teacher workload. Now, if you think moderation days, you're coming off timetable, you're sitting down, you're talking about it, you're going through it, we don't have to do that now. We can do it all electronically. We don't physically need to be there. We don't need to be taken off timetable. We get to be with our students, which is what we want. This can be done at different times and not all at the same time together. We can take our time with it. We can do it over a week, over 2 weeks, and just make sure that this moderation happens, and afterwards we have that open dialogue of how we can improve even more as teachers, and how we can improve this experience of students. Now, the next thing is obviously student interaction. Now, I've already spoken about discussion boards, but with this application and this technology, it actually allows for a shared responsibility within that classroom. We can have a document that every student works on and collaborates on together. So for me, with my mixed classes, whether they are at home or they're in the building, it doesn't matter. That student still feels very much a part of my classroom and is still getting the experience no matter where they are, because they're working together and they have tasks together. So I'll just show you a few little examples of things I get them to do. And this is a revision resource, which I know you will not be able to read because it's teeny tiny what they've done. But we can see here that there was 3 different students working on this revision resource at one time. And again, uploaded to Showbie on the discussion board for them all to be using together. But I'm very keen to show you how you can use this within lessons and not just as a resource storage. So I'm going to talk you through another example. This was a year 13 psychology example. The content is can be a little bit sensitive. So we have to do about forensic psychology. Now, what I done was I decided to incorporate a real life case because the exam board asked us to incorporate real life cases. So I used the case of Jamie Bulger. Now, the students in my classroom all had the links to the news articles, and each of them was responsible for breaking that news article down and to share it with the rest of the group. Now they could do that on voice notes on the discussion board. They were posting up bullet points on the discussion board once they finished that. The next part of the lesson then was slightly different. What I'd done then was I allocated each of my students in year 13 a topic to argue to the judge about why these particular boys became criminals. So this is the lesson. So they created an argument for the judge, and what they then had to do was they had to record their argument in a voice note. So all of these arguments were then stored on the discussion board and played to everybody so that we could all decide, well, if you were a judge, which one would you go with? Which explanation do you think suits this case the best? Because this is one of the hardest skills to get in psychology, is the AO2 understanding. So for me to be able to use technology to enhance that, it was amazing. It worked phenomenal. And the students are actually asking to do more lessons like this, where we've got that active collaboration. And in fact, as soon as I've set it up, all I have to do is sit back and facilitate and watch. So the students get that ownership and responsibility, which is fantastic. Sorry. The next thing I'm going to be talking about is Socrative. Sorry. Now, Socrative, I incorporate in all of my classes, and effectively, what it is, it's for testing. Now you can use it for low stake testing, personalization of lessons, to address common misconception, and you don't have to mark anything, all right? All the marking is done for you, and it's sent to the students, which is amazing. So I just want to explain what it is. It's basically an application that we can use to make quizzes for students. So here's an example of what one looks like. It will produce this. Obviously, I've starred out all of my students' names on this quiz. But as you can see here, when the students are completing this quiz, it gives me their percentage. So on this particular one, I've got students getting 75%, 88 and 75. I'm like, okay, that's great. Amazing. However, I can go more in detail. All I have to do is just change some of the settings on Socrative, and I can get even more information. So right now, I can see the red answers, obviously the ones that they got wrong, and the green answers. But instantly, again, I don't waste my time analysing this because it does it for me, is that I can look at this, the question, the second question in, all of my students got that question wrong. Why? Why is that? So now I know straight away, I'm going to go see what question 2 was, I'm going to put it up on the board, and I'm going to go through it as a class, because obviously this shows there's an area that they do not get, and I need to go back and revisit that. So again, it's just about catching that misconception at the earliest instance and making sure that I personally am addressing that for those students. And what teacher doesn't love when their marking's done for them? So this is a big selling point for me on this one, is that it provides a print off like this. So this is a print off of one of my Year 11 psychology revision classes. I have 48 different questions. Now, instantly, I can get these marking sheets, they get sent to me, and I can allocate them to each one of my students via Showbie. Socrative and Showbie work together. There is no going in one app, out of the other. As soon as I've made my quiz, I can stick it straight onto Showbie, and that's my job done. The students then receive this marking, which is amazing, because I don't have to be spending my time marking or anything like that. Instead, I can be spending my time giving, extra one-on-one with them. Why did you get this wrong? Having those more in-depth discussions and allowing that deeper learning to actually happen. So once again, a phenomenal tool to use, and the students love it. I haven't got a picture of an example here, but I actually use it for recall tasks at the beginning of lessons as well. Maybe just 5 or 6 questions, but I'm very competitive. So you can actually change your Socrative to be in rockets or horses, and you start off and it's the first to the finish line. So we have a leaderboard in psychology of who was the first to get to each finish line, and everyone's always eager to get there and to be the first one to complete and get them all correct. Okay, so again, if you mess about with it, so many different ones. You can have short answers, you can even put essays on there, which is amazing. Okay, so moving on from this then, I'm now just going to go through and talk about the 3D brain and the brain dissection and how I use this technology whilst doing scientific dissections. So there is an application called 3D brain. Now in psychology, we have to teach localization of cortical functioning, which is basically what are the parts of the brain, what do they do, what they're responsible for, how do we know that, what are the case studies, is there any research? So once that's being taught effectively, I then get the students to play about with this app, which looks like this. Now, students can actually interact with this brain. They can move it around, they can see it, and then they can actually choose to allocate the labels for it. They can choose to get more information, and it will actually come up with research for them, an overview, whatever it is, and tell them about that part of the brain. They then use this technology to guide them through dissecting a sheep's brain. Now, anyone who does psychology will know it's extremely hard to get hold of brains, especially with the brain stem still on them, but I'm very lucky enough, and the school's lucky enough that we live in a part of the world where we can get them with the brainstem intact, which is amazing. So I literally, once it's been taught, once they're familiar with the app, I go into a science lab and I give them the sheep's brain. And I say, Uber to you, and I give them the responsibility. Students then use it and guide themselves through the dissection, obviously with me making sure it's all right, to produce the different parts dissected. This photograph is then uploaded to Showbie. I normally leave it about a week or two, and then I do a pop quiz at the beginning of a lesson and ask them to go back on, go onto the photograph, and Showbie allows you to annotate this photograph. So the students will then go back on, they'll be able to write on it, what's this part, what it does and why, and it's a closed book test, and it just allows me to get more of that feeling with them and to see, has this actually sunk in? You know, not just being taught it, but using the technology and physically doing it together again, not separate, making sure that they are completely collaborative together, technology and physical classroom. Now, we're coming up to the last thing that I actually wanted to go through today, which is Minecraft. Now, anyone with children out there will probably be sick to death of Minecraft. However, one of my students absolutely really loved it, boy in year 10. And not that he was disengaged, but I knew I could get him more. So instead of a brain dissection, I got him to make the brain in Minecraft, which worked extremely well. Basically, what he'd done was, he built the brain in Minecraft, as you can see here. Now the different colors will take you to the different lobes of the brain. And he even made light up neurons that would show a neural pathway of signals going to that part. Once you go to the end of each lobe, he actually built it where you could see what part of the brain we were looking at and the information that's around it as well. So you could open this book and it give you all the information that you need. Once again, just another way of using technology in the classroom, and worked amazing. He was so engaged with it. And on that mock exam, he absolutely aced this section, 100%, he got 100% right, which I was super proud of him for. But all of his hard work, just using technology. Now, I know I've only got 2 minutes left of the presentation. However, I have got a very short video that was made by one of our phenomenal teachers here at SRS, who really helped me out a lot by making it. So I'm just gonna share my screen on a different device, and I will show you what this looks like now.
In no more than 4 words, describe what is Showbie.
Showbie reduces workload.
Efficient, technology, organisation and feedback.
Paperless, effortless, innovative and intuitive.
Convenient, reliable, accurate and fun.
An electronic workbook.
Some of you might ask yourself, what is Showbie? Well, let me give you a brief explanation. It's an app that is used by both students and teachers and helps by organizing the students' work and assignments. And it makes marking so much easier for the teachers. Showbie allows the teachers to assign and collect work, as well as gives the students feedback and guidance in the form of annotation, voice notes, and even videos. Also, Showbie has a special pen tool, which makes it very easy and convenient for the students to annotate and complete their documents and assignments on one app instead of using different apps, which can be very confusing. Some of our favorite apps we like to use while distance learning is Teams and Socrative. Socrative was an easy and effective way for the teachers to assess the students about their understanding and their knowledge. And also it can assess the students in a variety of different ways. It can use multiple choice questions, short questions, or even long essay writing questions. The second app we loved using while distance learning and even now is Teams. Teams is used to teach in school and distance learning by able to sharing screens and allowing the form of communications between the students at home and in school.
Showbie is an excellent platform to use, especially for a subject like psychology that is essay-based and has heavy content. As the lessons sometimes involve quick quizzes, exam-style questions, and even actual exams, it's a perfect app to use, and it's so easy that students from Key Stage 2 all the way to Key Stage 5 are using it. Annotations can be directly made onto the lessons themselves by teachers who share it with the entire class, as well as the student-specific annotations that are viewed by the teacher only.
There has been a few apps that have helped with online learning, such as Showbie, Socrative, and Microsoft Teams. Showbie helped by having all of our work and assignments there, and even now, when we're back in school, it makes it much easier to do the work, assignments, and also it's much safer doing it this way.
Okay, sorry, just stop sharing. Okay, so that is my presentation finished. So, Graham, did you want to go to the Q&A?
Yeah, if anybody's got any questions, please use the Q&A feature, please, or use the chat, and we'll use those to answer there. There's a couple that come through. I mean, there's clear that you've done a lot of work within there, and it can be quite daunting. How do you collaborate as a department and use the technology that way?
So in order to collaborate as a department, obviously I said about every teacher can go onto every classroom. So for example, at the moment, one of my teachers is in all of my classrooms. She's phenomenal. And right now she's going back and she's moderating my work. So we don't have to physically be together, but we can collaborate together using the app. And then we can actually keep track of, okay, what students have been moderated, which haven't, are we agreeing, are we not? And more than anything as well, we have, we can share resources on there, we can share lessons, we can reduce the workloads of each other because everything's there. We don't have to go and ask, oh, have you got anything for this? We can have access to everything. So actually the collaboration is working phenomenal. I don't get to see her as much, which I miss her a lot. I don't physically get to see her, but we are working still extremely well. And it's as if we do see each other every single day now. It's just all done on.
So is it things like the copy assignment feature that you use quite regularly across each other?
Yeah, so effectively with Anchovy, if I've made an assignment for one class and another teacher wants it, she can just go onto my classroom, click copy, and she can send it to her class. It saves her making the assignment and it saves re-uploading everything. You can actually click multiple classes. So for example, we've got 4 classes in year 11, we make it for one class and copy it to the other 3. And it's done.
Yeah, fantastic. There's a question just come in about the start of your Showbie journey. How easy was it? And actually, have you got any advice for anybody who might be starting out? So if you did make any mistakes, you can avoid those.
Well, I was introduced by Showbie, I remember a couple of years ago now. A gentleman called Abdul walked into our school and was like, it's going to change your life. I remember sitting there with my friends, we were looking, thinking, we don't think so. This isn't, where's the paper? Where's the pen? Very old school views. And now, I couldn't thank him enough. It's changed everything for us. And, I know that my friend, everyone in the school, we are paperless. So not only are we contributing to the environmental aspects there, but our students, we're removing the boundaries. Students don't have to put their hands up in class if they don't want to. They can ask me on Showbie. If a student's at home or in front of me, it doesn't matter. They're getting the same experience. It's the marginal gains that we've had. There's that many multiple of them. I couldn't even I'll be here for an hour telling you all of the advantages that this has given us.
Yeah, and how easy was it starting out with it?
Very, very, very easy. It was more actually the setup of setting up a classroom. As soon as I click classroom done, get a code, all of my kids put it in, they're in, it's done. And then it's just about uploading work and setting it out however you want, the way you want it. Effectively, all my classrooms and all the work for this next cycle that's coming up is already on there. And it took me maybe about 30 minutes for all of my classes to be on there with all of the resources for the next 5 weeks. That's all up and done. It saves you so much time, very easy. I think when I started off, it was more, I don't see how this could work. And the only advice I will give you is try it. Try it, just dive in, have a go. I promise you, it will change how you view your teaching style. And actually, it will get you better outcomes for those students.
Yeah. And I love the example of the use of Minecraft. With just thinking about technology in general, is there an expectation that the children will put that amount of time in to make those resources, or is it purely off their own back? And do you see it as a motivational piece?
I never force my students to do anything apart from an exam, then I have to. But I never forced them to use anything. In fact, it was very much sitting down, okay, what do you tell me about you? What do you like? Like Minecraft, can we not do this in Minecraft? And literally, that's how the idea come about. And he was like, yeah. And I was like, how would you do it? And then it was just through that, getting to know each student. Everyone's very different. He was the only one that done that. I had another student who made, a 3D mind map where you could move it about and I could see it and zoom into things, which was amazing. But again, that was one task, and I had it done in about 7 or 8 different ways within that classroom, because Showbie allows me to give them that independence. It allows me to do more personalized learning because I can keep a track of every single one. They're all making better progress than if I forced them down one avenue. Every student.
Yeah, I suppose that's the versatility of allowing any file type to be uploaded. A question: would you go back to pen and paper now?
No.
No, that's probably a really easy one in terms of that. And I love the idea behind your mock exams. Is it okay just to unpack that a little bit more? So do you use any features that might help, so students might be entitled to a reader in an exam? How do you cope with that in a mock exam situation? Just talk us through that, because I love that idea. And my one takeaway is the layering for moderation, because I've never ever thought of that before.
It's amazing. Like, that is amazing, because it takes away the unconscious bias that you might have if you can see someone else's mark in there. But in terms of mock exam, so I haven't done this yet, but this is how I would envision it. I haven't got any students that need a reader. But if we think about it, we've got voice notes there. If a student is going to do their exam straight on to Showbie and they're entitled to a reader, would it not be effective for the teacher to record their voice reading that question? If a teacher could record their voice reading the question, and then they can just play it and then give their answer, they can actually play it again, and then it's giving them that reassurance there and familiarity. I don't know, I've never done that before. I don't know if that would work. That's literally just an idea that just come in my head now. But I can see that could work. I don't know logistically with exam boards how that will go down, but especially for exam prep, I think that would be an amazing way to go down. Amazing avenue.
Yeah, I mean, for mock exams, I suppose it gets the students used to the process and actually the level of support that they are allowed. And yes, you probably won't be able to take the iPad in, because you will actually have a physical reader in that exam, but you've got that there. So that, yeah, some of the stuff that coming out with is absolutely brilliant, and I've thoroughly enjoyed the session. Are there any more questions for anybody? No, there's no more questions come through. So what I would like to do is thank you for giving up your time to come and share what you're doing in your classroom. And on behalf of Showbie, thank you very much for doing this presentation. Yeah, we're getting the comments in there saying that was a great presentation. So thank you very much. Just for everyone else on the call, we've got a panel discussion coming up with UK EdTech demonstrators today. We've got sessions later on around augmented reality, and we've got the staff room at 6 p.m. UK time. Actually, probably middle of the night for you or early on. So
9 o'clock, but that is my bedtime.
Yeah, So we'll be going in there. You'll get a chance to meet some of the guys from Showbie, other teachers who are using it, and just a chance to just chat and reflect on what we've seen today. So no, thank you very much, and thank you to everyone. The recording of this will be available afterwards. You'll get an email notification. Feel free to go share it with everyone and anybody. So thanks again, Ashley, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you very much. Thanks for having me. I really appreciate it.
Thanks. Bye.
Bye.